Welcome peeps, it's been a while since my last motorcycle video review, so time now to catch up with a new material. Honda VFR 1200 DCT is the subject of scrutiny today. I bought this bike about a year ago and didn't just ride it, but I also did some maintenance work. So with all that in mind, hopefully this video will help unveiling this bike a little more to the broader audience. It's pretty obvious to anyone who knows basics of motorcycles that VFR 1200 is an almost typical case of a sport touring bike. Over the years, Japanese manufacturers got us well accustomed to signature features of that type of bike, such as potent engine wrapped in plastic fairings, windscreen, clip-on bars, accessory luggage, and you've got your sport touring recipe ready to go. Notice, however, how I referred to it as almost typical sport tourer. I did that because this bike is packed with a ton of cool technology, making it stand out from the crowd of the other more conventional machines of that genre. The number one killer feature of this beauty is obviously the DCT automatic gearbox. Folks, for years I've been hearing judgmental statements about how stupid it is to put an auto box in a bike. People usually say that this will just kill the pleasure of riding and make the whole experience very dull. Brothers and sisters, I hereby proclaim to you, this could not be further from truth. DCT in this bike is simply awesome. Never in my entire ownership of this bike I felt bored or unsatisfied from riding. Exact opposite, in fact. Of course, its automated shifting comes with its oddities and doesn't always do what your brain is expecting, but it still works pretty damn good. Computer has a tendency to put you in top gear as soon as possible, especially in normal drive mode, but switch it to sport mode and real fun begins. For those who still want more control of the bike, just simply use manual mode and change gears yourself. Seriously, I have no complaints. And yes, you can feel the transmission constantly meshing from one gear onto another, but you just get used to it. Overall, it's pretty smooth and damn fast. 1237cc V4 motor is stout. On paper, 172 horsepower is pretty much as good as the first generation Hayabusa was known for. 16 valves, fuel injection and liquid cooling is rudimentary stuff by today's standards. But there are some interesting surprises if you look further. Intake valves, for example, are adjusted by shims, but exhaust valves use the lock nuts. It's like a little bit of 80s technology in a 21st century bike. The way the engine develops power is somewhat surprising. I was expecting instant shove from low RPM due to large displacement and V-layout of cylinders, but up to about 4000 RPM engine is actually quite docile. Over 4000 RPM power comes strong and builds up in a massive surge at top end. From about 7000 RPM engine presents very serious shove. Exhaust note is somewhat gentle, but pleasant enough. Historically, VFR models used to be known for signature single-sided swing arm, and no difference here. Completely new design, especially for VFR 1200, looks great and keeps maintenance low, but be aware of the factory recall on most shaft drives for that model. To see if your bike had warranty work carried out, look at the frame for stamped mark confirming it. Fully adjustable USD forks at the front are nothing special for a vehicle of this caliber and price. At the rear, big monoshock with remote preload adjuster for convenience. It works well for the most part, but has a tendency to seizing when riding in bad weather. Soaking it in WD-40 for a few days got it sorted in my case. Word of criticism for the tiny little fuel tank. Only 18.5 litres in a bike claiming to be a sports touring machine, that's no good. Later models equipped with slightly larger 19-litre tank are really not much better. This engine has appetite for fuel when blasting 90 miles per hour on the motorway, so something like 24 litres would be ideal. Dashboard has a ton of good information and it works well. There's a clock, gear indicator, ambient temperature and more. Windscreen works okay for stock and modified handlebars, but after converting to touring bars, which are obviously higher, I found the screen to be a little bit too short. Ride-in position is finally acceptable as I lowered the foot pegs and lifted the handlebars. At 6 feet tall, I find it acceptable for long rides. In stock form, however, the clip-on bars were just too painful for me. I just couldn't live with it. Brakes are ferocious. 6-piston radial calipers at front bite so hard. ABS may work well when riding in wet, but I'm just not a fan of that system, especially in a 15-year-old bike where it's just another gizmo waiting to break down. CBS, or combined braking system, as standard in all VFR models, activates front left caliper when you press on the rear brake harder. You do not, however, activate the rear caliper by pressing the front. That's not how it works in VFR 1200. Broadly speaking, brakes are great, but require service and keeping them clean. If you notice brake binding, it's probably time for maintenance or rear master cylinder rebuild. It has a tendency of failing, which puts constant low pressure on rear and front left caliper. Mirrors work fine and can be folded for parking or transport. Speaking of parking, I shall not forget to mention a parking brake. Yes, that's correct. In DCT variant of VFR 1200, you have a separate brake caliper on the rear. Center stand is a great addition, helping during service work. And maintenance work on this bike is painful. If you're not prepared to spend your time, you'll be spending money, as access to most components is rather not easy. Changing spark plugs, for example, took me 3 hours. And just for comparison, I'll tell you that removing an engine from Suzuki RF900 took me just 2 hours. More involved work like valve adjustments or cam change replacement will take serious time.
Okay, so off we go, continuing the ride. The behavior of this DCT gearbox is, as you can expect, a little odd. At slow speeds you can really tell that the gearbox is meshing the gears in and out to keep you in the best possible position, which in real terms isn't actually always the best possible position. The gear changes are pretty smooth. The only noticeable gear change that comes to mind is the change from 1 to 2nd, where you can hear like a little click or a little bang, but nothing really ominous. All the other gear changes seem a lot smoother. Vibrations from the V4 engine can be noticed, but I think I've seen worse on many motorcycles. The mirrors aren't perfect, but they're pretty good. Again, I've seen a lot worse on bikes in the past. I wouldn't complain too much about them. They're also foldable, which helps with maneuvering the bike in a tight garage if it's fully loaded with other stuff, like other bikes for instance. So the riding position of the standard VFR 1200 with no modifications to bars and foot pegs is quite uncomfortable in my view. This is the reason why I changed the bars to those Renthal touring bars, which is a lot more comfortable. I've also lowered the pegs, which gives me almost ultimate comfort. I'm not going to compare the Honda Gullwing, of course, but it's good enough for most of riders. The bike isn't actually too flickable. This feels heavier and a little bit more ponderous. So as you can tell, for the last couple of minutes I've been riding this bike and I'm just completely chilled out. It's like riding a big powerful scooter. I don't have to do anything with my left hand. It just modulates the throttle and control the bike with the brakes. And the brakes of this bike are ferocious. The 6-piston calipers at the front do an amazing job. The rear caliper isn't bad either. The only criticism I would have of this setup is that in low RPM, this is typically noticed in the city when you're doing in the region of 20-25 miles per hour. The bike is a little bit jerky. So I questioned that on the VFR forum on Facebook and everybody told me that's absolutely normal. Allegedly there are ways to iron it out with a tune, so I might consider that. Story goes that later model of VFR 1200 are a lot smoother. Those are the post 2013 models.
Okay, so let's sum it up. Who is this bike for? Well, almost for anyone who can live with fairly uncomfortable and heavy bike. Caveat here, you can make it comfortable with a few fairly simple modifications. Handlebar and the seat are being most recommended. Stock seat is quite hard and terrible really. Prices of good DCT bikes are pretty affordable, and what you get for your money is blisteringly fast machine with superb brakes and decent handling. Market of accessories is very good too, but prices are rather high. Maintenance cost may be steep too, if you choose to go to Honda's dealership, so bear that in mind. Reliability and build quality is absolutely top-notch, as you'd expect from premium Honda like this. DCT makes VFR a nice commuter bike, but it also can be used by somebody with disability. Remember, not everybody can use clutch. Good luggage and strong engine call for long-distance touring, however small tank is a limiting factor. Do your own service work and DCT reset every now and again and you'll be happy. I loved my DCT experience to bits, and I just regret there's not many bikes sold with this transmission. Thanks for watching, and till next time.